Today we're going to talk about contextual inquiry. Contextual inquiry is the first step in contextual design. It's our field data gathering technique. And you're going to hear this word context a lot, because at the very center of success in product design is understanding and having the context of the people in their lives. So the field interview helps you to see and understand what's going on with people in the context of their actual life. Oops, that was supposed to be on that. The contextual interview is generally a 2-hour, one-on-one field interview. That means one person doing the interview with the person who's in the field. If the interview is in someone's home or a place where security might be an issue, we would send along an accompanying person. But generally, we only need the interviewer and the person whose life we are trying to understand in the field. We do not want to cast of thousands. The best way to think about a contextual interview is that you're going out into their world, knowing what it is that matters for your particular project, which we call the project focus, and you're going to spend a slice of life with them, focused primarily on understanding the activities that are relevant to your project in the context of getting that project done. So we're going to go out to their space and talk with them about what they're doing that is project relevant while they're doing it. The best way to think about yourself in a contextual interview is that you're going to be taking on the role of an apprentice to a master. Now, we don't really have master-apprentice relationships anymore, but I think you probably watched enough TV to know what a master-apprentice relationship is. So when we think about it, you are the apprentice. You are not that smart person from some very important company. You are not that developer who made the tool. You are not wearing a white coat. If we think about the role of the apprentice, I want you to think about what words you would use as an apprentice. So answer these questions in your mind. In the master-apprentice relationship, who has the answers? Who knows? Clearly, that's the master. The master is the one who knows how to do their life or their skill better than anybody else. In the master-apprentice relationship, what's the attitude of that apprentice? Can they tell that master what to do? Oh my God, if you told the master what to do, you'd be booted out of the room. The apprentice is humble. They are kind of lowly. And they're there to inquire. They can ask a question, but they're listening to the answer, because all the answers that matter are coming from the master. And in this case, the customer is the master, not you. And if you put on the right role when you go out into the field, you will come back with quality data. And if you go out thinking you're in charge instead of the user, well, you'll come back with everything you already thought, because you'll be doing all the talking. Right? So let's slip into our humble apprentice outfit and learn the key principles of contextual inquiry. Contextual inquiry, the way to run the field interview is based on 4 concepts. I'm going to go briefly through each of those concepts so that you can get the feel for what a contextual interview is like. Okay? The first is context, the second is partnership, the third is interpretation, and the fourth is focus. Context. You want to get as close to the work as possible. You want to be there, no matter where that is, when that work is happening. If it occurs at somebody's desk, you're snuggling up next to them while they do the work. If it occurs in the giant hangars of Boeing's airplane, you're riding around on bicycles and running from place to place in order to see what's going on. If that occurs inside of a car, you're sitting in the car and you're riding along inside of the car. And if that occurs crawling around to find wires with mobile workers, then you're crawling around to find wires with mobile workers. You want to be with the person, in person, wherever that activity is going on. Because it's the only way you will see the whole universe of that person. If we want to see what's happening, no aspect of life is only about one tiny piece that you happen to be interested in. If we're trying to design for the lives of the people, we have to see how they're interrupted. We have to see how multiple people will drop in and coordinate. We have to see how tools are being used. We have to see how many tools are being used. We have to see how they take breaks. If we want to understand what is going on, then we want to be in the place that life happens. Not in a conference room. Not distributed through Skype or any other kind of meeting. Not only looking at their interactions with a particular tool. If you're looking at their interactions only with a particular tool, you will only get usability nits. You will not have the opportunity to reconceive of what that product should be, of what other products should be, because you do not have the full context of life. So the key aspect here is to go there, to be in the world with the user, and as we'll say later, to be grounded and talk with them about what they're doing, based on what they are exactly doing, not based on what you want to talk to them about, not based on questions you have in your hip pocket, not based on what you've decided are the things to ask them. There is no formal structure to a contextual field interview. And we'll talk about the structure that there is. But you are there to follow what they are doing once you tell them, this is what I care about. Okay? Now, we also have to watch out because they're not used to a real field interview. Most people think their everyday life is super boring. And we're here to care about the lowest level of detail of their everyday life. Our job is to come home with as much low-level detail as possible. He did this, he did this, he did this, he did this, he thought this, he said this, he thought this, he said this. And they're going to go, am I wasting your time? And you're going to say, oh my God, this is so fantastic. But if you respond to their high-level generalizations, or if you ask, what is your overall thought about X, right? Or something even worse, what do you usually do? Oh my God, we never want to use words like, give me the big picture, usually, overall, frequency. Never ask frequency, because you're pulling for high-level generalizations. And as soon as you start them talking at the high level, they'll start talking like this. They'll talk to the air. You'll know when they're using summary experience, when they're telling you things that are conceptualized in their mind but are not about their real life, because they'll look in the sky like they're looking inside their mind in order to find the answer. But if you're really collecting contextual data, you'll be driven into their work. They'll be focused on what they're doing, and you'll be talking about what's in front of their nose. So we don't want to waste our time out there talking about high-level things. We don't even want to waste our time out there talking about their children, their plants, their this, their that, how they went on a vacation that you went on. We're right there to really apprentice, to be with them and understand what they're doing in their work. And we'll talk later about how you're going to interact. So you want to focus on ongoing work, not summary experience, right? And if they start summarizing, because they will, you're going to go, can you show me an example of that, right? They're up here. You're going to pull them down. Can you show me that in real life? So you're not going to tolerate that high-level experience. You know, and most of the time, people will flex. And some of the time, you will get people who are incapable of doing that. And you'll go, well, I'll get the data I can and move on to the next guy, because you're studying the market, right? No one user is going to make or break your product. All their data matters, but if you have a guy who can't talk about life, he wants to, like, philosophize, you'll spend your half hour with him and you'll go home, because you'll figure out I can't get very much data from this guy, okay? But watch out, because most of the time it's your skill in driving them down, yeah? Okay? All right, now, last piece. You want them to be concrete. You only want to deal with real-life cases. Now, if you're paying attention to the work that they're doing, you don't have to worry about it. They're looking at their email, they're getting up, they're talking to someone, they're going in their file cabinet. They're interacting with a document or an artifact. They're in their car. They're changing the dials in their car. They're reacting to what is going on. As long as you're in the moment-to-moment experience, you will get concrete data. But what happens if you need to understand something in a particular task that happened before you got there? And so from that, we do retrospective accounts. But we do retrospective accounts only on what occurred within the last 2 weeks. No one can remember anything that happened before that, no matter how much you wish you were there. So make sure that either you can see the data as it's unfolding or it's something that occurred recently. And then use your artifacts. Find their emails. Stand up and replay it. Walk down with the system manager to the place in the data center that they had to go last week. Because if they're standing in front of the real artifacts, or if they're standing in the context of the real world that they just lived, they will be able to remember all the detail. But if they just talk in their chair without any stimulus, they will not, and you'll be back to summary experience. So remember, you're always dealing with real cases, which means you will never say, "What do you usually do?" You will always say, "What did you do last time that you did this?" And you will also never say, watch this word, "What would you do next?" Would? Would? What is that? Please make up the future for me? This is not data. Instead, you will say, the last time you did this task, what did you do? And now we're back into a retrospective account. So stay with real life. This is the core of being in the context of the work and being led by their context, and the core of the context principle. So for each of these, we'll have do's and don'ts. So you've got this one I just talked to you about, right? Let the user talk in the air. Instead, make it concrete. Allow the user to summarize. Know what to do instead. Reconstruct the situation. Back them up if they skip a step in the reconstruction. If you can't follow it, if they're taking too big of leaps when you're doing a retrospective account, you hypothesize what's missing and you say, "But did you call anybody in between?" And they'll go, "Oh yeah, I called these 3 people." So it's much more talking and it's a dialogue when it's retrospective. Discuss feature requests out of context of usage. So if they say, "I wish you would give me this feature," you go, "I hear that you're worrying about that. When we get to it inside of the context of your work, let's look at how it plays out." Don't talk to them about feature requests. Use it as a reset of your focus so that when they're doing the work, you can pay attention, right? That's just high-level talk. Don't ask, "What would you have done next?" which I just talked to you about, predicting future scenarios. So this is your job when you're out there. Stay in context. Then you will get good data. Second concept, partnership. People know everything about what they do, they just can't tell you. They know everything, but it's habitual, autonomic, unconscious, and invisible to them. So you can ask them in questionnaires and in focus groups and in usability tests and in any kind of context you can imagine, "What do you do?" And they will never be able to tell you anything that is true. Now, they will not say nothing because, if you say to me, "Karen, what do you do?" as the leader of in context, I would not think that I couldn't say something. I would be forced to say something, otherwise it's embarrassing. And so I'll make up some stuff, some very high-level stuff, which will not be particularly useful to you. Why? Because people don't watch themselves. People don't watch their lives. They don't really know what they're doing. So, that's part of our job. Our partnership is an equal partner relationship. We are in an equal partner power relationship. They know their lives. We are there to help them uncover and articulate their lives. In a questionnaire situation, the interviewer has the power, because it goes like this. I ask, you answer. I ask, you answer. I ask, you answer. I wait and wait and wait until you ask. I answer, and so on, right? You decided on the questions. You decided what matters. You decided, and they're being nice, and they're helping you. In any typical situation of questionnaires, of focus groups, of usability tests, as they are classically done, the power rests with the people running the study. And therefore, we cannot trust the data. In a field interview, all the data is in the person who can't tell you anything. And the way we get it out of them is through our partnership relationship, because we're watching while they're not. And so we're going to be in what we call a withdrawal and return relationship, which you see drawn up there. Together, we're going to work, and I'm going to watch and watch and watch, and I'm going to start making some hypotheses about what might be going on. And then I'm going to say, I'm thinking you're doing this. We withdraw from the ongoing work to talk about what just happened 2 minutes ago. And in that context, they can tell you what's going on. And then we say, all right, let's return to the ongoing work. And then we see something else, and we stop. Now, if you do that enough, what interestingly happens is that the user learns to withdraw on their own. And they will stop and say, what you really want to understand is da-da-da-da-da. They will tell you, because they will learn the rules by doing it. So think about the tone of a contextual interview. It feels like this. I watch, I see, I withdraw. I think, I talk. I'm back, I'm watching, I'm seeing, we withdraw, we think, we talk. It's very different than I ask, you answer. Very different. Lilt, right? You're up to something together. You're trying to create a shared understanding of their life. You're trying to help them rise their consciousness of what is going on, yeah? Okay? So, be careful, because we're going to fall into all kinds of roles that we're used to. That traditional I ask, you answer interview, or they're going to hit a problem with the software and you know the answer and it's going to kill you. Because as soon as you tell them you become the expert and they stop doing their work and they start asking you about all the problems they've ever had and you blew it, you went into the expert mode, and you're going to have to get yourself out of that, and you're going to say, uh-oh, I'm in the expert mode, I'm taking my expert hat off, I'm going to tell you all the problems at the end. Watch out, you'll drop into the expert mode. Or worse, the guest host. Right? Very hard. Of course, when we were in Denmark, the guest host was really hard because you had to do a little guest. You know, they give you a little cake before you sit down and talk, but you got to get them into the work, yeah? You know, what's the guest host? Well, they think they're hosting you. They clean up their office. God forbid, tell them, don't clean up your office. You just got rid of all the data. They say, do you want a Coke? Do you want this? You are going to say no. You're going to sit on the opposite side of the desk here because you think you don't want to be in their face. Wrong. They signed up for nosiness. Can you follow me? Instead, you're going to go, Jen, what are you writing? And you're going to just stick your nose right here in her space because she signed up for this. And when they go down to the bathroom, you're going to go with them. And when, unless it's the wrong sex, and when they, but we have powerful women now, so it's okay. And when they go in their file cabinet, you're going to go with them too. And if they talk on the phone, you're going to say, did that have anything to do with what's going on? And then they'll tell you. Be nosy. You're not in a guest-host relationship. Partnership means you're up to something together. And when they're done, they will turn to you if you did it well, and they will say, you understand my life better than I do. And I've had that happen any number of times. So do's and don'ts. Here we got it. No expert role. We just talked about that. Remember, tool tips at the end. Don't be distant. Don't be apologetic or you know, like you're a guest. Don't be timid. Be in their face. And then reconstruct what's going on. Be confident. Be genuine. Don't create a formal relationship. Be nosy. And don't sit on that visitor side. So it's all about getting over your fears. Okay? The best way to think about this is as airplane intimacy. You're creating for 2 hours an intimate relationship with a stranger. Just like when you're on an airplane and you end up talking to the person next to you and somehow you're each telling each other everything about your life and then you're never going to see them again. That's what you're trying to achieve when you're out in the field. It's airplane intimacy. It's got to be real and it's got to be genuine. You have to be fully present as a human being, validating their existence by being really interested in their life. All right. 3, interpretation. Now, I've said you better get the real facts, right? Okay. The problem is that we don't actually design from facts, we design from the interpretation of the facts. It's what we tell ourselves about what's going on that actually matters. Now, if we don't have any facts, then there's nothing we can tell ourselves about. The problem is that we go so quickly from the fact to the interpretation that we think the interpretation is a fact. So it looks something like this. The customer does something. We see a fact. We make a hypothesis. We say, oh, I bet they're doing X, right? We say, well, that means this, and then we generate a design idea. We come home and we say, this is the function they want. When I ask people who said they've talked to the customers for years to show me their data on the customer, it always looks like a function list. The customer's never told them that. What's going on is that you see what's going on and you immediately jump to the solution and you think, now I need this feature. That whole stream of thought takes like a second. So if we're going to really get it right, we have to intervene in that. All right, story. You're in the restaurant. You see an older guy and a young girl. They're talking to each other. He gives her a gift. You're nosy, so you're thinking about that. Okay? You're going, is that his daughter? Is that a young mistress or something? All right. Now, if he gives her a book, you make up this story about how, it must be his daughter. And if he gives her like a negligee or a ring, you make up a different story. You go home. You tell your spouse or your significant other or your friend, I think I saw this today. Now, do you believe you know anything about that person's life? No. Well, the same thing happens with data. If you just look at what people did, and then you make up what was really going on in your mind, it is in no way different from that little restaurant story. And so our job in interpretation is to make our hypotheses explicit and to share them and say, I think this is what's going on. And then they can respond. Then they can say any number of things. And now our job is to find out what they mean. So if you share your hypothesis and they go, huh? That means, no, you have no clue what's going on. If you share your hypothesis and they say, yeah, maybe, that means, no, you have no clue about what is going on. If you share the hypothesis of a design idea and they say, the people in the other department would like that, that means, no, I don't need that. That's a dumb idea, but they're not going to be impolite. Yes always comes with elaboration. They go, or they'll look like they got caught. You know what happens when a friend of yours interprets your behavior and you get that funny feeling like, I've been exposed? Well, that's what the user will do. Now, in some cultures, they'll do like this. That's just hiding from the exposing that you just did. So you got to watch the nonverbals here, okay? But if they say yes, and then they start telling you more and more about it, that means bingo, bingo, you got it, okay? You got the right interpretation. So you're watching for those nonverbal cues, and you're sharing your hypotheses and your design ideas. In the beginning of doing an interview, when you're not experienced, you won't be able to do this very much. But the more you interpret it in the interpretation session, the more you'll be able to do it in the moment. And don't worry that you're going to get their life wrong. When you're dealing with people's lives, there is no influence problem like you have in the lab. When you're talking about people's real lives, no one lets you get their life wrong, ever. My favorite story of this is I was in a high-powered analytical lab that had a crisis. And I was interviewing the guy running the lab, and I gave him an interpretation of his role in the lab. And then we had to get out. And I walked through 2 double doors. And he was running after me. And he said, it's not exactly that, it's this. I'm really much more like a quality manager. He fixed one word in my interpretation. People don't let you get their real life wrong. Stop worrying that you're going to somehow stick something in their brain that they're going to agree to. Doesn't happen any more than your significant other will let you tell them how they feel when you are wrong. Got any experiences like that where they say, yeah, you're right and you're wrong? No. If you're in a genuine relationship, you're talking about real life, they will fix and tune your interpretation. Stop worrying about tainting them. This is life. All right. So, don't just watch what happens. Look for patterns and offer interpretations. Don't ask yes or no questions. Don't ask open-ended questions. Talk about what's really happening and what you think is going on. You're sitting in your head with a hypothesis anyway. Share it. Concept 4. All right, so I said, take no notes. I said, they lead. I said, don't ask yes, no questions. I said, don't have a list of questions. By now you should be terrified because you don't know how to run the interview. How do you know what to talk about? You are led by your project focus and by your interview focus. Your project focus says, this is the domain of life and activity that we care about. That means the only things you're going to talk about are things inside that domain of life. You are not going to talk about anything outside that domain of life. On the other hand, your focus may be limited. You may not have as much breadth of what really matters for the project as you think. So part of what's happening in the interview is we have to blow your focus open. We have to go, gee, you're coming in with a whole set of assumptions about what you think this is about, and some of those ideas will be right and some of those ideas will be wrong. And then there's a whole bunch of things you didn't even know existed. What you're trying to do inside the interview is steer it with your focus and expand your focus and throw out the junk. Now, you already know how to do this because you have relationships, and this is just another one. If you're with a friend, and the friend says to you, what'd you think of the game last week? And you hate baseball. You don't say, oh, gee, let's keep talking about the game. You say, yeah, I heard they won, but I got this cool book on wooden boats, and when we go out on the boat, next time maybe we can take a look at these elements of the boat. And the other person, who's also interested in wooden boats, says, really, let me see the magazine. And now you're talking about what you want to talk about. Your focus helps you figure out what to be talking about. If you ignore the stuff you're not interested in, they won't talk about it. But if you ask about it, then they'll waste your 2 hours. So you follow up on the stuff that matters, you ignore the stuff that does not. And that's how you steer the conversation. Your focus is what you have to keep in mind. And anytime you can't remember your focus, you look at the 5 words you wrote at the top of your notebook, and that reminds you, why are you there? Okay? So you're keeping your focus right here. And that's what's your steering wheel in the conversation. Your job is to expand that focus. So think of your focus as a flashlight. It's saying, these are the things that I want to shine my light on. It reveals what matters for the project. Now, how do we open your focus? Because you're already in there trying very hard, because you have that kind of cognition because you're a human being, not to get any new information in your head. That's the way our brains work. So we have to deliberately break our paradigm. And so here's the rules. If you see something that's a surprise to you, if it's a contradiction, if you think it shouldn't be happening, if you say to yourself, that's not real, that's exactly where you have to probe and learn more, because it's busting your pre-existing assumption. If you are looking and you're going like this at their behavior, he's doing something, you're saying, yeah, you're nodding. That's like saying, I recognize your behavior as my behavior, therefore your feelings are my feelings, therefore I'm going to believe that what you are doing and what I think I would be doing is the same. This is like, woo, right? Ask them if you're nodding. Ask them. You don't know stuff. You're going to be out there and not know a thing. I was taught everything I know about work practice, life practice, and technology by the users I've interviewed over many, many years. Not knowing is good. Not knowing is great. You don't have to know anything. What you have to know is that when you don't know, you go, can you explain that to me? What's going on? I mean, I'll never forget when I walked into a data modeling person. We were going to make a data modeling application, and I had no clue what data modeling was. And I was like, why are you making those hexagons? What are those? And so they started teaching me so that I could follow what was going on. Or when I was at the trader, and they're trading and arguing. And then I had to have them walk me back through what was really going on. It's good not to know, but you've got to get your answers there, not run home and ask your buddy who already knows about traders to explain what happened in the interview you were on and he wasn't. Ask. And if they say, you need to give me this design idea, you don't write that down like a requirement. You go find out what the problem is he thinks his design idea is going to solve. So the key here is to share your interpretations and to hear through the nonverbals what you need to probe to bust your own ideas up, yeah? And then you'll steer the conversation to data that really matters. So our do's and don'ts: explain your focus. Don't just focus on problems. Do not just look for problems. You're designing product futures. Do not just look for usability nits. Not interesting. Blow that focus out of your mind. Forget it. Not when you're in the field. Things that they trip on that are workarounds will happen. You don't have to look for them. Pursue issues and events outside your focus? No. Stay inside your focus, but allow it to open up, and don't dismiss issues that you need to probe to expand your focus. Don't talk from an implicit list of questions in your pocket. As soon as you're steering the conversation too much, you know you have a list of questions in your pocket. Yeah? And don't you assume that you know what they mean. Ask. All right, so these are the core concepts of how to run the interview. Context, partnership, let them lead, articulate their practice, interpretation, create that shared understanding, and focus. Know your purpose, challenge your assumptions. If you do these things, and in the beginning you'll feel like you're tripping on yourself, embody it, get focused, now live it. Do it enough times, you'll get good. Okay? So how does it look in real life? You start with a traditional interview. 5-10 minutes. Hello, I'm this person. I'm here to do this. Here is my focus. Tell me an overview of your work or your life, depending on who you're talking to. Get an idea of what matters. They may have problems with the product. Let them say what they are. Write them down. Don't pursue it. Then you're going to ask for tell them about confidentiality, see if you can record. We sometimes have people audio record. It's mostly a security blanket. We never videotape. We never videotape because we're looking for airplane intimacy. We don't want a whole cast of thousands here, right? There's no intimacy in that. They have to make a one-on-one relationship with a real human being. That's why a one-on-one relationship is better than a two-on-one relationship. So audio tape, because you can listen to your own thing later on and you can ask yourself, how'd you do? Okay? Listen to their overview of their life and look for a starting point. You have to say, all right, you were going to do this today, let's do it. You have to look for the first activity you're going to ask them to do. Then it'll move from there. Okay? Have in your mind these 3 things you want to cover because of what they told you about their life. When you run out of one, you go to the next one. All right, now you're going to reset the rules. And you're going to say to them, okay, I'm going to now watch you and talk about your life, and I'm going to interrupt you as you do things. Tell me if I interrupt you at the wrong time. That's the switch. Now you have to do it. Now you're going to keep doing, interviewing and interpreting their activity for an hour and a half or so until the end. And the end is like a big wrap-up. You're going to tell them it's a giant interpretation. You're going to say, this is what I think really matters to you. This is the role you play in this activity. These are the things that you value. And here's the biggest problems. It's a big, fat interpretation. And give yourself some time because they'll react to that and they'll come running after you to fix one word. Okay? So that's the basic structure of the contextual interview. So now your job is to just make sure you record everything in a spiral notebook just like this, no other notebook. You've got your focus statement at the top, and now you're handwriting No one else has to read it. You're hardly even going to use it, but you write everything down because it helps you synthesize. And you can draw a few pictures as you go. Don't use a flip, take no technology. Write. You're going to look for 10 to 20 pages of handwritten notes. That's how you know you did enough. You're going to learn how to interview and write without looking at your hand. You're going to complain about it. That's part of the process, complaining. And then remember that you may want to collect their artifacts, draw their physical environment. These days, take a few digital photos, but still draw what's going on. You don't need a second interviewer to take notes. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. You can do this. All right. And these notes, right, don't summarize, don't condense, don't even think. You're Watson. Write everything down. Don't think, just write. I said this, he said this, I said this, he said this. Use your own little abbreviations. So, that's what it means to do a contextual interview. And your commitment to me is that you get out there and you do them. Okay? Okay.